So let's talk about the Opera House. So this week, the New South Wales Police... What was the guy's name again? Mal Lanyon? I'm a bit hard of hearing when it comes to the New South Wales Police Force. Let's have a listen. Fortunately, they have an acoustics expert. Hallelujah. All of us who've been in the media for many, many years, no, we're not acoustics expert. You need a proper acoustics expert. Let's have a listen to this bloke telling us what...
As a result of that investigation, investigators have received significant volumes of audio and video files recorded outside the Opera House on that night. As part of the investigation, investigators engaged an eminent expert in biometric science. That expert has conducted an audio, visual and acoustic phonetic analysis of the audio-visual files. As a result of that examination, the expert has concluded with overwhelming certainty that the phrase chanted during that protest, as recorded on the audio and visual files, was "Where's the Jews?" not another phrase as otherwise widely reported.
Who is this idiot? I mean, seriously, this idiot has embarrassed all of New South Wales. I'm sorry, your audiophile expert, doodah, biometric, what's it, wasn't there. We will have someone on the show shortly who was there at one of the protests outside the town hall who heard people saying, "Gas the Jews." I've seen stat decks of people saying they heard "Gas the Jews." There are any number of people who were interviewed by the New South Wales Police. There was one person called Philippa who spent 3 hours with the New South Wales Police.
3 hours?
And told them very categorically that "Gas the Jews" was being said. Now, the first thing to say about this is that it's completely irrelevant anyway, because this was an anti-Semitic rally at an event, the Opera House, one of the most important sites in Australia in terms of the world's opinion of us. It was a memorial to those people murdered and massacred on October 7th. It was 24 hours later. Israel hadn't started to respond. There was nothing in Gaza happening on. It was a memorial to all the people who've been raped, butchered, murdered, kidnapped, desecrated, decapitated. And Australia put on a memorial, and these absolute thugs turned up, marching outside the Opera House. They're letting off flares and going on and yelling about Jews. I don't care if they were yelling "F the Jews" or "Do kill the Jews" or "Gas the Jews" or "Do whatever to the Jews" or "Where's the Jews?" Why would they be asking "Where's the Jews?" Because they want to do harm to them. And that is what it was all about, a modern pogrom, a modern lynch mob, and this moron of a police character gets up there and bangs on about an audiophile expert. Shame on you. What an absolute disgrace. Well, Australia should hang its head in shame, and New South Wales, that bloke should be punted tomorrow, whatever his name is. Oh, punted? I said punted. No, not the other word. Yeah, I just punted.
But, Rowan, remember, the question "Where's the Jews?" is actually really important.
It's almost worse than "Gas the Jews."
Well, it is, but you know why
it's a
you know why it's worse? You know why it's worse, Rowan? Because the New South Wales Police that night told the Jews, "Go home.
Exactly.
You're not safe here. Yes. We cannot guarantee your safety. We will not protect you. We will not protect you. And if you come with an Israeli flag, we will bundle you off and have you arrested." This is what actually happened. This was the real shame of this. Everybody needs to remember this rally was a celebration of a massacre. Israel was still counting the dead. They were still trying to understand the horror of what had taken place on October 7th. They hadn't, begun to contemplate what they were going to do in retaliation or how they were going to eliminate Hamas or what they were going to do about Gaza. They were still picking up the pieces, and these guys out here were chanting and celebrating and lighting off flares just like that preacher out in, I think it was Bankstown, Greenacre, who was yelling about "This is a day of celebration," just like we saw people all over social media. This was all about celebrating the murder, massacre, and rape of Jewish people. And for the police to then say, "Oh, well, now we're going to make it about this," that's ridiculous. What's even more ridiculous, though, is all the people on the left who are saying, hey, see? It's okay. They didn't say "Gas the Jews." They just said "Where's the Jews?" and "F the Jews." But they didn't say the other thing. So really, what's your problem?
Rita?
New South Wales Police has taken 4 months to try to cover their own butt, basically.
That's what they're doing. This is a cover-up.
What this is.
This is a cover-up.
This is a PR exercise. It's a shameful PR exercise. It's one that any sensible person can see right through. We've got the audio. We've heard what we've heard.
You can hear it, folks. Use your own ears.
People with the stat decks. As you said, this was even before the counter-offensive. So this is before Israel had responded. So at this stage, all that happened was that we had the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. The sails of the Opera House were to be lit up in the colours of the Israeli flag as a show of support. And Jews weren't allowed to be there to have that sombre moment, to have that moment of grief, because police told them you're not safe. So that's the climate in which this happened. Let's not forget that.
And Australia, many Jews in Australia understandably now feel terrified. This is their homeland, their parents' homeland. Many of them, their parents escaped from the Holocaust, traumatised by that event. We now have the police, the New South Wales Commissioner here in New South Wales making, whatever he is, assistant, making a complete goose of himself. We'll play you a bit of the chant. You can decide for yourself what you hear, but here you go. This was the shameful experience on the Opera House, a modern-day version of a pogrom or a lynch mob preparing itself on the steps of the Opera House. Disgusting stuff. Have a listen. Disgraceful stuff, James.
Well, and, you know, let's also remember that so much of this also goes down to the utterly useless police minister in New South Wales, Yasmin Catley, who did nothing about this, who gave the worst sort of mealy-mouthed interviews when she was asked about why was this allowed to happen, why were Jewish people not allowed to be present, why weren't arrests made on the night of people who were doing things that were obviously illegal, like setting off flares on the forecourt of the Opera House. And it was all, oh, well, it was about safety. And it was actually the safety of her officers. They didn't want confrontation, which means that if you're enough of a thug, you get to decide who controls the streets.
100%.
That was disgraceful. But, you know, beyond that, too, it wasn't just this. For weeks afterwards, Rita, you saw this in Melbourne, too, you had caravans of people, Middle Easterners, coming through Jewish neighbourhoods with their cars, with huge PLO flags, chanting, screaming, intimidating people in the eastern beaches here, in Melbourne as well. And, you know, all of this was about intimidating Jews in what is supposed to be a country that is welcoming to all faiths, especially Jews who came here, so many of them, after the war.
Well, we've talked about a two-tier justice system in America, but we've got two-tier policing right here in Australia. And we've seen it over and over again. It is not limited to this. We saw it with the BLM marches. We saw it with how they treated anti-lockdown protesters. They weren't scared of conflict then. They were very happy to have conflict then. In fact, they adopted tactics that almost guaranteed conflict by bottling people in and not allowing them to disperse peacefully. And we saw, whilst they were allowed to do as they liked, a lone man with an Israeli flag was arrested for having for his own protection, he was told. We've had him on here talking about it.